Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Jemma, welcome to Consulting Leaders. Happy to have you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Let's jump straight into it. What first drew you into consulting and organizational development work?
So I started my career in HR in the early 2000s, and I really enjoyed that work. I obviously had a clear interest in people and how they work together. And then I think it was after my first child, about 2009, I started to delve into coaching. I was fortunate enough to be trained as an internal coach and realised that I was really enjoying kind of the development of people and seeing the impact that had in the organisation I was working in at the time. I later moved organisations and helped with the post-acquisition transition, and I really enjoyed that bit of understanding how both parts of the organisation work together and really engage with each other to turn some tricky situations into something that felt more opportune for both sides to come together and be really productive. Later, I formally did my coaching training and stepped out into the consulting world in about 2016. And was doing quite a lot of coaching, but really wanted to get back into bringing the skills that I developed during the kind of people HR part of my career. So I did a master's in people and OD, and that's really enabled me to sort of bring the different threads of my career together and support people in the work that I do, both on the consulting now and the development side.
I love that. What's the problem that you're solving now?
Rise Beyond, who is the organisation that I'm a consultancy director for, and one of the things we were formed actually on a rooftop in the kind of Arab Spring uprising, and that was really looking at collaboration and how do you support people and organisations to collaborate better together. And through part of that work, we recognised that working in organisations and being part of organisations and helping them to deliver is inherently complex. So the thing that I think we're really passionate about, and this is something that I've really appreciated having my in-house experience too, is to understand how you help leaders and senior teams to really create the impact they're looking for, and whether that's working on the kind of relational dynamics that they've got going on, thinking about how the team is in the organisation or how the leaders are in the organisation, what the organisation is trying to do together, and help make that much more object, help them be able to see those challenges and have the knowledge and skills to work together and deliver those things.
What's the main benefit of that? What's the outcome that you drive by solving that specific problem?
So, I mean, if I go back to when I was sort of first doing my degree and my sort of HR qualifications, I remember being given lots of models, and if 1A gets you to B and that equals C. And my experience of being in-house and both doing this work is that often we're quite frustrated. We set about trying to do something and things don't connect around that. We can't necessarily always get people's buy-in and support for stuff. So really, I think, the outcomes that we're going to is to help make that more understood, to help people be able to see how they're engaging in the organisation, to be able to think critically and reflect, and to have the conversations and that enable them to achieve the directions that they're setting, and also realise when that maybe there's legitimate concerns or things that they need to pay attention to in the wider organisation or with their peers, to support them to really achieve those things they want to do. We can, I think there's an African proverb that says we can go faster alone, but we'll go further together. And I think sometimes we get that kind of sense, we just want to get stuff done, we just want to achieve stuff, but there's only so much that one person can do. And I often hear about kind of the bottlenecks leaders find themselves in, where they kind of hold that weight on their shoulders. And one of the things that we're really helping people do through our work in terms of thinking around leadership and collaboration is helping people go further together. And when things are moving so fast and expertise is, at the end of a computer, like what is it that really makes you differentiate yourself as an organisation? And that's really leveraged up when you're kind of collaborating and accessing the intelligence that you can bring together. But that's hard. And I don't think people really are as honest about how hard that can be in a kind of organisation where, you know, time is limited, resources are limited, we have to make difficult choices. If we're not paying attention to the quality of the relationship and how the kind of organisation is set up, then often we can really actually slow ourselves down and maybe not achieve what it is that we want to achieve.
So who is it that you help achieve exactly that? Helping them achieve what they want to achieve but aren't managing to achieve. That's a lot of achieve in only one sentence. And who is it that, you know, you're helping at Rise Beyond? Is it the same person as the one who sponsors? Is it the same person as the one who makes the decision of hiring you? Because I suspect when you help teams go through that journey, maybe it has been their manager or L&D or HR who's made the decision of hiring you and your firm. So like, can you tell us a bit more about who your ICP is and if it differs from the decision maker, who that is as well?
When we're going into organisations and we're kind of doing that initial contracting, if you haven't got decision maker support and buy-in, or they are not the person that's holding that relationship, we actually recognise that the nature of the work that we do. So we're not just going to train a particular set of skills. We're looking to create impact and change within the organisation, how you work together. So that's often maybe looking at some things that maybe feel more challenging. So we're often brought in either by the chief executive or chief people officer, who really have the influence and autonomy to sponsor the work and enable that to happen. So we'd always look to have conversations and agreement with them in terms of the work that we want to do, because if we're going in there, we're not creating change, and that change isn't agreed to, then, you know, what we can do is limited. And, you know, where some of the stuff may be, you know, as a result of some of those things that those people are doing, you don't necessarily have the opportunity to do that work. And actually, I think that can be a bit more like Pandora's box, where you open stuff up and you don't have the agreement. So it's really important for us that we've got those. And we're also starting to see more work come in from people like strategy directors and transformation directors, I think, with organisations looking at how AI is coming into the organisation, how the markets are shifting. Those people are also, we're seeing come onto our radar much more in the end of last year and beginning part of this year. So those people that really want to make meaningful change and recognise that this process that they're going through isn't just about changing systems and processes. It's also, you have to change the way that people think and engage and are coming together around that. Otherwise, whatever you're doing is not going to have that really important sticking power.
So it's interesting because it's such a hard, I mean, the way I'm perceiving it right now, but I'm sure you're going to help me see clearly through it. The perception I have is it's a super hard sell, right? Like you can, I mean, I'm a CFO. I see how a new CRM or a new financial tool or, you know, a new system, like that's quantifiable. Doesn't mean I'm going to approve the budget, but that's quantifiable. When it comes to changing how people think and approach and behave in certain environments, that's a much harder sell, especially in nowadays and our days and an age where like times are tough. So how do you market? How do you brand? How do you make sure that the strategy directors, the transformation directors are problem aware, solution aware, and, you know, go and start taking steps towards contacting you? Like, how do you market?
Yeah. So I'd say a lot of our clients have had their fingers burnt by not looking at this stuff already. I think sometimes we learn our biggest lessons by the kind of slip-ups and mistakes we made. So quite often they're aware that something's gone wrong, or we may be coming in after the initial implementation has tried to come in and maybe not succeeded. Another big part of the way that we start working with organisations is through their executive teams. So we start with the executive team, often brought in by the chief exec or the CPO, to say, actually, you know, we're recognising that maybe there's greater potential for our team to meet, or we can see that there are some high-level fractures here in our team, and that's causing problems further down in the organisation. So one of the first things we often do is work with those teams, and during that process, we're starting to build a lot of trust and confidence in the approach. we're demonstrating that we are an organisation with highly experienced consultants that have been both sort of properly trained and developed in OD, but also have organisational experience ourselves. So we feel like sort of strong and true partners with them. So that's another way in. And then I think, if you think about what's happening at the moment, I think this is going to be the biggest change with AI since when the internet started coming into the organisations, but this is going to come in harder and faster. So that sense that we're bringing these tools into our organisation and we haven't had a conversation about how they're going to be used or how we will actually differentiate ourselves when everybody actually has access to very similar, if not the same tools to do that work. So I think that people are starting to think about, well, what's our competitive advantage around those tools? And that's how do we work together? How do we utilise them? How do we think critically? How do we deploy them in a way that isn't meaning that we are becoming detached from each other? Because there's plenty of times now that I might turn to AI and ask it a question that maybe I would have asked a colleague, or I might have shared some knowledge. So, what are the ways of working that will enable us to really benefit from the shift that we're having in organisations with the way that AI is coming in, but also enable us to really keep differentiated and to hold on to our culture. I think people that choose us recognise the value of culture. They recognise that it is, the culture of the organisation is really a critical part of what that organisation is and how it's working, and want to keep that focus and keep that as a priority in a time where culture could be damaged or lost or not held in the same way. So they see that as a competitive advantage.
So what I like about what you just broke down here is really much about the positioning, right, and the messaging, and making people understand, like, hey, this is the problem. I think in your line of work, correct me if I'm wrong, there's going to be a huge educational part, right? Before people actually take even action or actually even consider taking action. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So that's positioning, that's messaging. I think that's the super important foundation for us to understand what comes next.
Yeah.
In terms of marketing channel, what has worked for you to get the attention of the right people once you have that clear messaging and positioning?
So one of the things we've started to do recently is we've just set up a series of conversations called the Collective Edge. So we are both sharing our thinking and people that we respect within the fields, insights around actually what does it take to work in leadership and teams in organisations. So one of the things we're doing is sort of setting around a series of conversations around the Collective Edge. We've seen really good take up of that. We had our first one before Christmas and we're kind of taking that forward. And the reason that we've stepped into that is LinkedIn has become a really crowded space. And actually, when you look at what's being shared on that, a lot of that is AI generated content. So people can just spew out content, it becomes completely overwhelming, and the quality of that content isn't there. So while we're not coming off LinkedIn, actually, what we really want to focus on is getting into conversations. So things like podcasts and places where we can actually start to connect with people and people can start to experience us become even more important. In terms of 2026, we're going to build on our strategy last year of creating like leadership roundtables to bring leaders together where they can think about some of the challenges and we can share some thinking with them. So we're looking at doing some calls in the first half of the new year about cross-generational working. We have a product around young gens and how do you integrate those, and actually how do you develop a really effective cross-generational strategy, because that's something that has been a challenge for a long time, and we know that we have some solutions that can really help with that. So it's those sorts of things, but it's starting to find ways of really connecting with people and experiencing us as humans, because I think it's almost like a counterbalance to where everything becomes so sort of overly produced and just spewed out there. So doing those sorts of things alongside keeping a reasonable presence on LinkedIn and also going to events and meeting people at those events. We have some great conversations and opportunities that come from doing that too.
How do you organize those conversations? Like, with who are they? How do you? I mean, do you even record them? Do you put them out there afterwards? Like, how do you organize all that?
So we are blessed with having an amazing ops director who's an ex-West End person. She really helps us with our production. She's now got us on Spotify, which I actually feel quite excited about, because that is, that's where I see, I'm engaging with my podcast. So actually getting the Collective Edge on Spotify has been a great thing. And then in terms of organising conversations, actually, we're really keen to get to know and speak to people that are doing really valuable work, that understand that it's complex and challenging, is not just paying lip service, because I think those people that really understand what complexity is and how it works, and aren't just pretending that they can simplify it, are the people that we want to hear from, and believe that actually those people that are operating in it, that message will resonate with them.
Make a lot of sense. I'm somehow glitching a bit. Can you see me and hear me all right, Jemma?
Yeah, you're back now. I lost you for a moment, which was quite scary.
I have a technical issue. I never had that before. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Amazing. I don't know why it froze and kind of loaded. Okay, we seem to be good now. So podcasts. I love that, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great. To go back on one of the things that you mentioned that I think is worth doubling down. Not that I never talk about it. I talk about it always. I think it's so important in 2026.
Yeah.
Anybody can claim anything on the internet nowadays. Like those are the rules of the game now. And not only that, anybody can have a fairly good advice on internet nowadays, because you just go into ChatGPT, you have the answer, and you just spit out whatever ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, whatever you're using, gave you. So I think in 2026 and even beyond, what's going to be super important is brand, founder story, but most importantly, real human, unscalable positioning and marketing, like having a one-on-one conversation on the podcast. Obviously, I mean, these other things can work. Speaking at conferences is very good, obviously, but having that piece of content and make it as authentic, transparent, and unedited as possible. This is why we've made the decision of doing only lives, so people can see the true thing behind it and fumble and see some technical issues like we just had right now. I promise this wasn't staged. But so I couldn't agree more with you, Jemma, here, and that is so important in 2026. For me, it's not like you're not going to be able to do business anymore, but it's going to be more and more difficult and extremely tricky to get some business if you don't put efforts into putting yourself out there, building trust, building authority in an authentic manner.
Yeah, and we've heard with some of our partners, people we've been sort of talking to towards the end of last year, this idea of human first.
Yeah.
So actually being really conscious about where's human to human, and what's the value of that human connection, and what's it take to really look after those relationships and nurture them and enable them to really deliver what they need to deliver, because it's at risk at the moment, I think, and if we're not consciously paying attention to it, not doing the work around it, it's like starting January with your workout plan. It'll only deliver if you kind of consistent and conscious about keeping that there.
Amen to that. How do you now? What I'm interested into, Jemma, because you're walking the talk, right? How do you marketing, branding, positioning is good, key in my opinion. But what B2B coaches and consultants are after is business. How do you go from a valuable conversation, from content that you put out there from Spotify, to an actual conversation with the director of strategy, the director of transformation, the people who are going to make a decision? How do you move from that marketing channel that you're putting in place and shaping up to a conversation, a sales conversation, an SOW, letter of engagement, we rock and roll? Can you walk us through what the sales motion looked like for you?
Yeah, so really, the first most critical step is to create that first conversation. If you can get into a conversation, that is probably the biggest hurdle that we find we've got to get over, because I think at the market at the moment, those conversations are taking longer and they're going slower, but they're really, really important to start building that connection. And I think when you're in that conversation, one of the most important things that you have to really do is really seek to understand the context that that person's in, the challenges that they've got, and to be able to share something that feels useful, inspires trust, and makes them want to have a second conversation with you. So really, sometimes, those conversations can go on for 6-9 months before you actually get to the statement of work. Sometimes somebody comes in with a really clear sense that they need to do something quite quickly. So what we'd often do then is we might start, depending on the nature of the work, whether it's a development piece with a team that they want to work on quite quickly. We have a processes that we can go through to really engage with that team and be able to present back to them like what were some of the potential challenges they might want to work with, where they will get the most leverage. But for a longer piece of work, we might then just go into a discovery phase. So whether they want to use us for the actual implementation of that work, or they just want to use us to start to understand what we can find out in our discovery phase through the different tools that we've got to understand how the organisation's working together, to speak to people, to look at some of the artefacts in that organisation around what's happening, will give them a really strong insight about the opportunities they've got, some of the challenges they've got, and some of the things they might want to look at. So sometimes we'll stage pieces of work, but really, our average client engagements are about 3 to 4 years, and many of those then return after a break. So we tend to work in partnership with people for a long period of time. So, and we see that build. So, the first year may be a smaller piece, but it kind of grows for the first couple of years. And then once you kind of come over the hump, then it tends to be kind of just a kind of residual taking care of. Some of our clients stay in contact with us in just a gentle thought partnership relationship, where we're just staying in the loop, so they've got access to a consultant that understands their organisation, that can help them think through some of their challenges, and those sorts of relationships can go on for many years. So there's different ways in, but I think, just to answer your first question, really, it all comes from that first conversation. And if we can really start to share our kind of perspective on the world and help them see how that might be different in their organisation and what that might afford them that they don't feel that they have access to at the moment.
I like that there is an inclusion of building trust along the way, because even when you have the marketing tools, the right channels to do that beforehand, reinforcing it during the sales cycle, let's call it this way, is absolutely key, especially for the type of engagement we're looking at in B2B consulting, high tickets, working with organizations. So that does make a lot of sense. Once you're, go ahead.
I was just going to say, there's also something quite special about Rise Beyond, which is we're female-led and community-owned. So as an organisation, we are really there because actually this is work that we really want to do. We really care about the impact of our work. We really care about the types of organisations we're going into, and the importance of building those trusted, highly connected relationships, and that everybody within our community and the way that we learn together and work together is invested in making sure that the impact we have is really supportive of what our organisations want us to do. It's massively informed by sort of high levels of supervision and quality assurance.
Once you're there, Jemma, once you've closed the deal, walked with the person, what's one of the things that's the partner who taught me everything back at PwC, he was like, Guillaume, there are 2 types of consultants. There are the hunters and there are the farmers. And he was like, I'm a hunter. I love the smell of fresh blood in the morning. I love to go after new business. That's my jam. And he was like, but the partners and the consultants growing the fastest, the ones bringing in the most money. And he didn't mean it in a way like, hunters that looks sexy and so on versus farmers. It's like, no, the ones bringing in the most money are the farmers, the ones who are able to take an assignment, over-deliver on it, and transform it into a multi-layered, multi-year project involving all the team within the firm. This is how you become a rock star. How do you farm, Jemma?
So as I said, a lot of our engagements are multi-year engagements, most of them, in fact. So really, it is around, our work is relational. We're helping you and your organisation build the relational skills that will help you collaborate together. So our focus on relationships is really, really important, like to really understand the people, what they care about, what they need, what they worry about, what they hope for, all of those sorts of things. I think having faith and trusting us, understanding that we always act with high levels of confidence, and that we are, I suppose, also doing the work on ourselves internally. We do the work to ensure the quality. We have supervisors. You have an account manager sitting behind the front-facing account, just really validating what's being done, ensuring the decisions are happening for the right reasons. Because it's really easy just to seek to please and appease clients because they'll like you and they'll keep you. But some of the work that we step into has to be difficult, has to be challenging, has to shift stuff, because actually change doesn't come in comfort, it comes in discomfort. So we do the work behind the scenes and ensure that we are sort of keeping a close eye on all the accounts that we're running, that we are having those conversations in the accounts, and that those our clients have an access into people like me if they've got questions, or we need to make sure that we're doing really good work. So we don't just put an account manager onto a client and stand back. We're always evaluating those, and we're always working really closely with our account managers and clients. So that level of quality, I think I spoke about earlier, is really, really important to us. But also we really enjoy our work, and we care about relationships with each other and our clients, because that makes it fun. And we don't want to sit there in something that's really difficult and uncomfortable without an element of fun, without seeing the progress, without celebrating the achievements that we've made. So, I think when we did a survey last year, because we've been in existence for 10 years and 10 years of impact, and people really talked about the spaces we created and the things that enabled them to do, and the value that they took from just working with us, and making us feeling like part of their team has been a really important thing. So those things we're really paying attention to. We're not just sitting there clock watching, saying, right, well, you've had that thing. We always seek to go above and beyond, and really sort of hopefully our clients are surprised by what they get from us.
I like that a lot. That's a good farming. So a bit of a curveball for you, Jemma. I don't know if you're into baseball or cricket.
Not massively, but I'll take it.
You get the expression, I guess. It's just me trying to use some fancy English expressions here. What's your number one challenge? What's the one thing that is when you're gonna crack that nut, you're gonna take the whole business to the next level? What's that one challenge for you?
I don't know if it's an easy nut to crack, but I think it's the uncertainty in the market. I mean, I think we had a really good pandemic. We had a really good year or so after the pandemic, and I think what's happening in the wider marketplace is impacting, getting quite close to sales, but things being pulled at the last minute because of internal things or internal uncertainty. So we've had to get a lot clearer on impact of our work. And for people that recognise complexity, there's always can be uncertainty about, what will be the long-term impact of you do, well, for the work that you do. I mean, quite often somebody will say to you, is when you said that thing to me, my whole landscape changed. Well, that's really hard to measure or to quantify, to put into impact, but we've had to get a lot clearer about the impact of our work. So I think it's really being able to share the work. Like you said at the beginning, like it's much easier to buy, Salesforce and say we're going to put that in, and they've got all of that data to say those sorts of things, and it's it's physical and tangible. But how do you, in an uncertain market, when you know that the importance of the people and the relationships is critical, how do you really get people to understand that and sell that? And I think if we can get better at that, and the people that have got to know us through those conversations can put that proposal in front of their CFO, and the CFO can go, I understand why that would work, and the numbers man can see what the kind of people element of those sorts of things is and why it's really important, and we can join that dot. I think that's and we can make that understood for a potential piece of work. That's really transformative.
Jemma Barton, ladies and gentlemen. Jemma, if people want to find out more about you, see what you do, where should they go?
If you come to our website, Rise Beyond, or you can email me at gemma@risebeyond.org. We'd love to hear from you. We're also on LinkedIn as well. So hopefully we'll be able to connect through this and share this too.
We'll put all the links in the description. For what I'm concerned, I can at least guarantee one thing out of this interview, Jemma. You got one new connection on LinkedIn. Me, I just added you.
Yay, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time. How